Hello, I'm Movie Hanger, and this is the movie A Cure for Wellness. A successful young man arrives at a remote sanatorium where visitors undergo strange water treatments.
What are you doing?
Ich bin krank.
What are you doing?
The film begins with a businessman working late in the office. Suddenly, he is plagued by chest pain. He drinks water from the cooler, but a heart attack is not cured that easily. The man collapses dead in the deserted office. Only his photo on the wall, as the best employee of the year, looks indifferently at the unfolding tragedy. The train rushes through picturesque landscapes of the Swiss Alps. It carries the protagonist of the story, young financier Lockhart, on a business trip. The young man chews nicotine gum and doesn't get off the phone, doing deals and making money. The trip is interrupted by a flashback. Lockhart moves to a new office where he is valued by the management. When he is summoned upstairs, he is full of optimism, but the board of directors shows him a strange letter from the CEO Pembroke, who has gone to an alpine sanatorium and sent a notice from there that he is quitting the business. However, the problem is that his signature is crucial for an upcoming deal. Lockhart is sent on a business trip to find and bring back the CEO to New York. This way, he will atone for financial manipulations. Otherwise, he will go to jail. Before leaving, he visits his mother in a nursing home. She gives him a handmade ballerina figurine as a keepsake and bids farewell to her son, convinced that he will not return. Along the winding road, Lockhart is driven past a village at the foot of a mountain, atop which the sanatorium is visible. The driver tells a legend that once there stood the castle of Baron, obsessed with blood purity. Peasants burned down the estate when he decided to marry his own sister. They enter the territory. The young businessman sees old people in white clothes, enjoying the fresh air. Lockhart asks to wait and goes to the reception. Visits are closed for today, so he asks to call the administrator. While waiting, the young man tries to call the office, but there is no signal here. He wanders through the green lawn, where he notices a ventilation window in the basement wall of an old chapel. Chatting with the administrator, the young man notices an old photo of the burned castle. The doctor treats him to local miraculous water, while taking vitamins from a blue bottle. The administrator suggests visiting in the evening when Pembroke's procedures are over. The hero has nothing else to do but return to the car. On the way out, he notices a girl in a blue dress on the fortress wall. On the way back to the car, a deer crashes into it, causing an accident. Lockhart loses consciousness and wakes up in a sanatorium room. He is greeted by a cast on his leg and Dr. Heinreich Volmer. The medic informs Lockhart that he has informed the young man's superiors about the unforeseen circumstances, and he himself will have to spend several days in the sanatorium. The main thing is to drink plenty of water to ensure successful acclimatization. After the conversation, Lockhart, standing by the window, watches as they seal the window at the base of the chapel. He then finishes his glass of water and notices a small spot on the glass, which turns out to be some kind of bug. The young man wanders through the building, watching patients under supervision of the staff, engaging in various water procedures. Soon, he is invited for steam baths himself. In the sauna, full of steam, Lockhart loses track of time and realizes that the passage behind him has disappeared. He finds himself in a closed room with no way out, but after a few moments, he sees a corridor where a deer flashes by at the end. He goes there and finds Pembroke, the goal of his visit. The old man refuses to return to the city for the sake of business. He talks about the need to cleanse oneself and then remembers Lockhart's father. They started together before he betrayed him. Suddenly, the old man agrees to return home for a few days. Lockhart asks the reception to call a taxi. He waits on the street where Mrs. Watkins approaches him, a big fan of puzzles. She studies the history of this place as well as local legends. The hero sees the girl in the blue dress named Hannah, who is a special patient. Lockhart admits that he will leave soon, to which the girl is surprised. Why leave from here? The beautiful landscapes make the young man think about it. Upon his return, Lockhart cannot find Pembroke. In the dining hall where patients are with Dr. Volmer, the doctor admits that Pembroke fell ill after their work conversation, and they sent him for special procedures. The young man bursts into a scream, but suddenly, he starts bleeding from his nose and collapses unconscious. Volmer examines him in his office. At such a young age, Lockhart already needs special care. Lockhart agrees to the doctor's proposal, but as soon as the doctor leaves, the young man steals Pembroke's medical card. While giving urine samples, Lockhart notices that in one test tube, besides the liquid, there is something alien, resembling a parasite. Lockhart is immersed in a sensory deprivation chamber. He is warned that the absence of stimuli can lead to hallucinations. Floating in the liquid, the hero remembers his childhood, but suddenly notices numerous eels. He He tries to get the attention of the nurse, but she is distracted by a medical sister. Trying to resurface, Lockhart loses the oxygen hose and struggles in the water, unable to open the lid. When his pulse drops, he sees his father's death flash before him. His father stopped the car with his son right on the bridge, got out onto the road, and jumped from the bridge. The paramedic revives Lockhart. They inspect the chamber, finding no eels inside. In the ward, the hero reviews Pembroke's medical history and notices abnormalities with his jaws. He is distracted by a strange noise from the bathroom, where the toilet tank handle moves on its own. Approaching the toilet, the young man notices a worker pushing a cart with a body into the chapel. The next morning, he talks with Mrs. Watkins. She tells him that the villagers burned down the castle not because of incest. The reason was medical experiments for which the Baron abducted people. Their dried up bodies were found in the fields. Lockhart suspects that the Baron was looking for a cure for his wife. Watkins was taken to procedures. The young man inspects the door in the tower, but a worker drives him away. Spotting Hannah, the hero approaches her. He asks her to give him a ride on a bicycle to the village, offering in return the ballerina figurine he received from his mother just before her death. Together, they descend from the mountain to the village. Lockhart leaves the girl alone in the pub and goes to the vet across the street to consult about Pembroke. The result turns out to be interesting. Despite the abundance of drinking in the sanatorium, tooth loss is related to dehydration. Also, the country vet adds to the legend. The Baron's wife's sister was barren. Every attempt to conceive a child resulted in a miscarriage of a deformed fetus. At the end of the conversation, the veterinarian cuts open a deer's belly that had been drinking water from the mountain spring. Among its guts are numerous live eels. In the pub, Lockhart calls the office. It turns out that the doctor didn't inform anyone about the accident. The hero wants to talk to Hannah about what's happening in the sanatorium, but a local punk has already set his eyes on her. A fight ensues, interrupted by the appearance of Dr. Volmer. He takes the fugitives back. In Hannah's room, they almost argue. The girl feels pain in her stomach, but the doctor promises to cure her. Lockhart dreams of a naked Hannah in the bath, full of live eels. He wakes up from the nightmare and sees a worker pushing an empty cart out of the basement. By the mirror, the businessman notices a wobbling tooth that easily comes off. He goes to the reception to report this, but when the nurse leaves, he sees Pembroke's current location in the transfusion wing on the appointment list. The hero heads there, trying not to attract the staff's attention. Next to the elevator is a cart with a body. The lying old man suddenly opens his eyes and screams. This helps distract the orderlies from the elevator, and while they examine the screamer, Lockhart sneaks into the elevator and goes down. He finds several rooms with Baroque chambers. In another room, Mrs. Watkins lies on a cart. She tells him that she left clues for Lockhart. It also turns out that the Baron's wife was pregnant, but the crowd cut the fetus from her womb and threw it into the lake, yet the baby survived. The guy notices parasites under the woman's skin and recoils in horror, dropping a metal cabinet. Hearing the noise, orderlies run towards him, and he hides behind one of the countless doors. Here, there are many water tanks with people floating in them. Among them is CEO Pembroke. In anger, Lockhart tries to break the glass, but to no avail. He runs upstairs on the stairs, but encounters orderlies and Dr. Volmer. The medics drag him to the dental office to check on his tooth. Lockhart is restrained, and they drill his front tooth. After getting out of the chair, the guy gets into the car that brought in another patient and urgently asks to be taken away. They head to the police station, where Lockhart reports illegal experiments. But when the authority figure leaves, the hero sees the signature blue vial with the medicine in the cabinet. The police officer returns to the office together with Dr. Volmer, who calls Lockhart a patient suffering from hallucinations and aggressive behavior. Pembroke appears, confirming that the young man threatened him. The fact that the old man is alive greatly surprises Lockhart, and he doubts his own sanity, returning to the sanatorium. In the morning, he sits in the room at the table with Mrs. Watkins's notes. His attention is drawn to the sound of the flushing tank handle. Removing the lid, he sees numerous eels inside, but they disappear seconds later, as if washed away into the sewage. Lockhart breaks the toilet to check, but the eels never return. The hero writes a letter to the board of directors similar to what Pembroke wrote earlier. Then, he undergoes a series of procedures, but at some point, he smashes a glass of water and uses a shard to cut through the cast. His leg is fine. It's not broken as the doctor claimed. It was just a trick. Demolishing the lock, he ventured into the basement with a shovel in hand. Inside, there was an underground lake and an old laboratory. It stored dissected and preserved eels, numerous notes, deformed human embryos, and also skin removed from someone's face. There was also a kind of altar with a portrait of the Baron's wife, who looked very much like Hannah, only slightly older. Going further down, Lockhart saw a gurney with a body on it. Under the sheet lay Mrs. Watkins. A worker came from above. Hiding, the young man witnessed the worker tossing the body into the lake, where eels swarmed around it. A fight ensued between the worker and the hero. Lockhart smashed the opponent's head with a brick and fled. Frightened, Hannah, not understanding what was happening, went to the dining room to Dr. Volmer. Seeing blood on her dress, he, in turn, rejoiced. Lockhart appeared and ordered her release. The doctor tried to negotiate, but the young man addressed the patients, telling them they were being deceived and poisoned with an unknown water.
But I'm here for the cure. There is no cure!
The old folks rose from their seats, not to protest, but to grab the impudent youngster. Lockhart was taken downstairs to the transfusion wing, where he was placed in a hyperbaric chamber. Volmer explained that the water in the lake allowed the eels to live tens of times longer than their normal lifespan, but for humans, it was toxic unless filtered beforehand, and the filters were human bodies from which the mysterious blue medicine was extracted and evaporated. It was this medicine that helped the locals live long lives. Later, the doctor tells Hannah that she has become a woman from a girl. She goes to Lockhart, sitting on a bench outside, returns the ballerina, saying that he had needlessly given her hope that she could leave here, as the doctor would never let her go, and the young man suddenly stopped understanding why he should leave here at all. After all, it's so beautiful here. In the evening, dozens of sanatorium and village staff hold a wedding ceremony for the doctor and Hannah. Volmer leads the girl to the underground lake, where the laboratory is located. There is an altar and a bed, and here they are supposed to conceive a child. Hannah refuses, but the man ties her up. In retaliation, the girl hits him in the face, causing his forehead skin to split. Lockhart, twirling the ballerina in his hands, snaps out of his confusion. Recalling the words of the late Mrs. Watkins, he smashes the glass with a century-old photo in the administrator's office, showing the construction of the boarding house. There, a man with a bandaged head holds the hand of a little girl in a light dress. Realizing that the doctor is the Baron, who discovered the anti-aging medicine, and Hannah is his daughter, the hero runs into the basement where he pours gasoline. The Baron tries to stop him, even taking off his leather mask, revealing green burnt mess underneath, but Lockhart still sets fire. Sparks enter the ventilation system and ignite the curtains in the hall where the medical staff are having a ball in honor of the wedding ceremony. A fight breaks out, and the man almost feeds the young man to the eels when the girl appears. With a powerful blow, she sticks a shovel into her father's disfigured face. Getting out of the underground, Lockhart and Hannah admire the fire, against which the patients continue to dance. Leaving the building engulfed in flames behind, they ride away on a bicycle, but crash into a car at a turn. Inside are members of the board of directors. Lockhart ignores their orders, instead getting back on the bike and riding away with the 200-year-old girl, smiling like a madman. That's all for today. Comment, like, subscribe. Bye for now.